The Democratic leader.
Mr. President, today the Senate's returning from a 10-day recess. Even though Republicans took 10 days off, the Zika virus did not. Last week, a child born in New Jersey with severe birth defects caused by the Zika virus. Thousands of our citizens are exposed to Zika now, excuse me, today. But the problem will only get worse. Zika is a problem that's here and is not going away quickly. As the weather continues to warm and mosquitoes become more active, it will inevitably cause local transmission. The number of infected Americans will skyrocket. In light of the threat posed by Zika, one would expect Republicans to spend their break working on an emergency spending bill to send to the President's desk with a full amount, $1.9 billion. They did not. Instead, Republicans spent their recess boasting the Republican standard bearer, Donald Trump. The Republican Party's capitulation of Donald Trump is complete. As headlined last week in the Washington Post, and I quote, "It's official. The GOP is now the party of Trump." Close quote. I was especially disappointed to see that our senior senator from Kentucky personally led this pro-Trump propaganda tour. Senator McConnell spent last week as Donald Trump's head cheerleader, a trumpet. The Republican leader left Washington 10 days ago without doing his job on Zika, so he could stump for Trump. In the last 10 days, it's become clear that Senator McConnell will go to any length to support Donald Trump. Consider Republican leader's refusal to denounce Donald Trump's racist attack on United States District Judge Curiel, a man born in Indiana in the United States. Donald Trump opined a federal judge should be disqualified from presiding on his case because of his Mexican heritage. He went even further in saying he could feel the same way, and he would feel the same way if the judge were Muslim. How did the Republican leader respond? Senator McConnell repeatedly refused to say Donald Trump's attacks on Judge Curiel's ethnicity would be racist. This is precisely the type of failure that gave rise to Donald Trump in the first place. Senator McConnell and all congressional Republicans leaders have never taken a stand against Trump's vile rhetoric. That's because the hate emanating from Trump's mouth reflects the Republican Party's agenda here in the United States Senate for the last 7.5 years. The agenda that Senator McConnell himself promoted. For years, Senator McConnell and other Republican leaders embraced the darkest elements within their party. The Republican Party made anti-woman, anti-Latino, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, and anti-Obama policies the norm. Trump is the logical conclusion of what Republican leaders have been saying and doing for the past 7.5 years. By refusing to denounce Trump's attack on a federal judge for the racism it clearly connotes, it shows Senator McConnell is the poster boy for Republican spinelessness that allowed Donald Trump to be the Republican nominee for President of the United States. I've made this argument for months. I'm not only the one making it anymore. Now, even some Republicans are joining me. The conservative blog, Red State, rallied against Senator McConnell's refusal to condemn Trump's racist attacks. Consider this, the conservative blog, Red State, said this, and I quote, "Senator McConnell fell back to the last coward's refuge. We have to support Trump because he won the primary," close quote. The junior senator from Nebraska, a Republican, is willing to say that Senator McConnell won't. What he's saying today, and he tweeted, and I quote that from Senator Sass, "Public service announcement saying someone can't do a specific job because of his or her race is the literal definition of racism," close quote. Newt Gingrich, former Republican Speaker of the House, called Trump's comments inexcusable. There are others, but for his part, Senator McConnell is doubling down on Trump. The Republican leader is waging a nonstop campaign to persuade Republicans who have doubts about supporting Trump to drop their complaints and fall in line. The Republican leader even went so far, listen to this, as to compare Donald Trump as comparable to President Dwight Eisenhower, to General Dwight Eisenhower. Donald Trump is a failed businessman who built millions of Americans out of their hard-earned money. No wonder he won't release his tax returns. Trump doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as President Eisenhower, who led the Allied force in World War II and, among other things, integrated American schools. Comparing Eisenhower to Trump, give us a break. Donald Trump is the converse of all for which leaders like Eisenhower, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Reagan stood. They stood for equality, fairness, and decency. Trump and McConnell obviously do not. Donald Trump stands for hatred and stands for division. Senator McConnell also defended Trump's temperament, reassuring everyone that as President Donald Trump, quote, would be fine. That's what he said. That's a quote. Republican leader also extolled Trump's intelligence. Senator McConnell even claimed the Republican Party is, quote, at an all-time high, close quote, with Trump at its helm. That's how the Republican leader spent last week. He wasn't fighting for resources to stop the spread of Zika. He was leading the cheers as he stumped for Trump. Senator McConnell was doing zero for the 100,000 poisoned residents of Flint, Michigan. Senator McConnell was doing zero to find our nation's funding for opioid addiction. It's terrible. The Republican leader was too busy being a trumpet for Trump. And now that he's firmly entrenched himself in Trump's corner, I can't help but wonder just how far Senator McConnell's support extends. For example, were Donald Trump's comments about Judge Carroll racist, as a senator from Nebraska said? Senator McConnell wouldn't answer that question yesterday. He had numerous opportunities to do it. So I'll give him another opportunity today. And there are other questions that Republican leader needs to answer. Does he believe that a federal judge can be disqualified because of his American heritage? Does he believe that these attacks are acceptable for a man that wants to be president of our great country? Does he agree that judges should face a religious test? Senator McConnell said last week, and this is a quote, "We know that Donald Trump will make the right kind of Supreme Court appointments," close quote. After Donald Trump's latest attack on the judiciary, does he truly believe that Trump is the right man to pick nominees to our nation's highest court? The Republican leader defended Trump's temperament, saying he, and again I will quote, would be fine as president. Would be fine. I asked the senator from Kentucky, is it fine that Donald Trump calls women pigs and dogs? Is it fine when Trump calls immigrants rapists and murderers? Is it fine that his party's presidential candidate urges violence at rallies? These are not rhetorical questions. The Republican leader has so fully embraced Donald Trump that we are all unclear as to where Trump's platform ends and the Senate Republicans begins. If Republicans really think that a man who believes in religious and ethnic tests for a federal judge is fit to be president of the United States, they must explain why this is acceptable. The nation has a right to know how far Senate Republican support of Donald Trump extends. And that starts with the Republican leader. Because now there doesn't appear to be any daylight between Donald Trump and Senator McConnell. I yield the floor.